Hi, this is Graham Massey from 808 State, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a guest usually to talk about the two loves, which for me are music and football. Today it's all about music, and I've got an amazing guest that I have listened to his music for a very long time. He's from Manchester. Obviously, I'm a Scouser, so there's a little bit of a difference there. But music-wise, both are incredible cities musically. I've got the founding member from 808 State, Graham Massey. Graham, absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Sorry, I haven't got any football background, but it almost feels compulsory in Manchester that you should do, but somehow I've avoided it over the years.
Yeah, it's usually, if I talk to somebody from Manchester, they're either a blue or a red. But
yeah, traditionally my family's red, though my little brother is definitely blue. And my dad put the PA system in Old Trafford, and that's the only back in the 60s. So the only football match I ever went to back then was versus Sheffield Wednesday, dangling by a thread. And it had George Best and Dennis Law. But we used to play in our area. There was these two twins that lived a couple of streets away, and their uncle was Dennis Law. So we once had a kickabout with Dennis Law on the primary school playing fields. So yeah.
That's a good story to tell.
Yes, I mean, yes. He still lived round here actually for until I'm not sure. Has he passed away now, Dennis Law?
I think he's up there somewhere in the spiritual.
Yeah. And there's a church at the bottom of the road here where Matt Busby was at his funeral, and so you can't avoid it in Manchester. You bump into football everywhere, but almost I've got only enough space in my head for music, really.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, with how Old Trafford's going, the PA system's still in there.
Yeah, no, it isn't, because my little brother put another one in back in the 90s. So, so I know that to be true. Actually, me and my son DJ'd in the dressing rooms there probably about a year ago, launching some Adidas strip that had something to do with the Stone Roses. So we actually got to run about on the pitch because my son is an absolute United fan. Yeah, it's pretty obsessive. Mm-hmm. He used to go to the match with this guy who was the ranger for the High Peak in Derbyshire, Gordon the Warden. Sadly passed away, but he was in his 80s, and the son was about 14, and there were like a couple of pundits that went every week. They could talk this pundit talk, and I was like, where's he getting this from? But he absolutely loved the game, and they had luckily they had an uncle with a season ticket, so it's expensive business these days.
Yeah, they're hard to come by. It's like gold dust, I live in America, and thank God, I've got family and friends. I'm on their list, so when I do get back home, they're kind enough to go, yeah, well, you're only here for a week or two, so you can take mine. So,
do you work for a training shoe company, or is that your personal collection in the background?
That's my personal collection.
Oh, right, okay.
All Adidas as well. It just stems from when I was a lad. 15, 16, mum and dad wouldn't buy me, the Adidas I wanted. My first check on the YTS job, I went out and bought a pair of Adidas kick, and I've not looked back.
That's how it happened. That happened with me with musical instruments, because at school, everyone got access to a musical instrument back in the 70s, but they had run out by the time they got to me. So I didn't have access to musical instruments. I'll show them, as gradually the level of musical instrument hoarding in this house is quite high.
Is a lot of it's being used or collecting dust?
Oh yeah, I use it. Yeah, but people buy me things and give me things they don't want. So some of it's a bit useless, but then some of it, yeah, they're just beautiful objects.
Well, that I think that's the same thing with me with trainers.
Yeah.
I'm a collector. I have over like 200 pairs, all original boxes. A lot of them still have the tags on them. It's more about the quality, the suede,
Yeah.
the silhouette, for me. And
And you probably don't want to go jogging in them, do you? In a muddy field or anything.
That's when you bust out,
Yeah.
the ones you really don't care too much about. But I mean,
Yeah.
I buy seconds pretty much of everything as well. So
Yeah. I'm like that with synthesizers. I only take the sort of ones I don't care about out. The posh antiques, I don't take them out anymore. You know what I mean? They can't afford to get battered.
Yeah.
So it's occasionally on special occasions I might do that, but I'll take these ones where you can, if you broke it, you can pick it up in the shop in Portugal or something. You know what I mean? Those kind of.
Well, they're your babies, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Graham, I want to go back to when you're a kid, like what was playing in your house as a child, and did it have any influence on you musically?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Like music through the record player. We had a small dansette record player to begin with. Actually, we had a wind up one as well, going back to 78. So there was some 78s in the house, Gracie Fields, I think, and things like that. That were my dad's. But me and my brothers were allowed to buy one 7-inch single a week. So we took it in turns weekly to buy 7 inches. So and we had some cousins that gave us a load of 7 inches. So we had a lot of Cliff Richards and the Shadows records that came from my aunties. They were probably teenagers in that era. And no, they weren't my aunties, they were my nieces kind of thing. Yeah. And also Beatles records. Yeah, I distinctly remember being Beatle conscious at a very early age, unavoidable. I was born in 1960, so being about 4 or 5, various Christmases, Beatles records would appear. I remember also in my childhood, next door, they were very record centric. And I remember them getting Sergeant Pepper's the day it came out, and we all sat around listening to that. So yeah, that was around. But I've told this story many times, but music really hit me when we went to the cinema because of the sound systems in cinemas affected you much more emotionally, vibrationally, kind of. I was never particularly around live music as a kid. That was kind of, you never bumped into live music as much as, say, our kids do. I never got. I think we went to see the Halle Orchestra with primary school. We all got on a coach and went to the Free Trade Hall to watch John Barbaroli give that, probably that orchestra for kids thing. What was that? When it explains the orchestra, that made an impression. Yeah, I remember that quite strongly. Later on, the Free Trade Hall, I'd be there every other week when it was rock music in the 70s, because it was 50p. You could go and see, you could take a risk, go and see random stuff, which I did. One day Leonard Skinner, the next day Stefan Grappelli. It was as mad as that. It was as diverse as that. But as bored teenagers, that was what we did.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, because I'm a 70s kid, so when I went to see Star Wars for the first time, and I heard, the Star Wars theme. I was like, I was just mesmerized by it. And I wanted to try and find more of that. But obviously, in Liverpool and Woolworths, there wasn't many, 45s kicking around with stuff like that. But I was always searching for something that was different from the norm. I mean, I'm sure, like most English families, Top of the Pops on Thursday night, everybody got the telly and watched that. And then with the novelty acts and then some pop acts and some folk and stuff, there would be an act that would just come out of nowhere. I mean, for me, like the Jam really stood out to me, because I like lyrics and lyrics that are kind of meaningful. So anybody stand out for you?
David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that hit when I was in my early teens, and he was everywhere, and everyone in the street had some fixation with one of the albums, and they reissued a lot of his albums all at the same time. So everyone had the posters on the wall. They all came with a fold-up poster for things like Man Who Sold the World and Space Odyssey. So you could go in any of my mates' bedrooms and there'd be a David Bowie presence quite solidly. And, he pointed us, and I've said this before, that he was kind of like our art school. He pointed you in different directions. He pointed you towards books. There was a sense of an edge with it. My mother didn't like it. That made it very attractive, I remember my brother getting Aladdin Sane with the gatefold on his bedroom wall, but that was it was quite controversial because there's sort of like his crotch area there's two different versions, and there always seemed to be this David Bowie's crotch dilemma, because Diamond Dogs also had that dilemma where they later painted it out or whatever, things like that. So it felt like contraband at the same time, for a teenage rebel, And there was kids at school, walking around with David Bowie haircuts, and this one lad had his back teeth taken out to be more Bowie, at 14, and except they had to wear the blazers still, the school uniform, but the carrot top hairdo, that was quite a common sort of trope.
Yeah, kind of, I think Bowie really tested parents' patience. The kids were like, they just wanted to be. I think that the one thing about Bowie for me is just how much he can change direction musically and fashion-wise as well. At first with Ziggy, obviously, the glam kind of years, and kids were starting to, not around my ends, but boys were starting to wear eyeliner and makeup and stuff like that. And he kind of tested parents, just going, because that androgyny was just weird to parents back in the 60s and 70s. It was like, what are you doing? But musically, Bowie was just untouchable for me as well. It's just he wasn't. He was not afraid to experiment musically.
Yeah, and I like the sense of the avant-garde in some of Bowie's records. And I always thought like Ziggy Stardust was quite a tame record compared to something like Aladdin Sane. That almost like like the title track Aladdin Sane with all that crazy atonal piano playing. That really struck me. And instead like, I like that. The kind of, it felt like, somebody just who didn't know what they were doing. But for a 14-year-old, it seemed random, but it obviously is. It's very, very skilled to be able to play like that. But also Diamond Dogs, when that came out, it was very dystopian, avant-garde, discordant sections in it. And those really appealed to me. And I just had a thing with discord and atonal that really got me. You're talking about Star Wars and science fiction soundtracks. My brother had 2001, A Space Odyssey, and that's got the Ligeti music in it. That's all kind of like an atonal choir, and that used to hit me. And the title music to UFO on the TV at the end when it all kind of went, you know. What's the word? Yeah. It's all that spacey stuff used to get me. So it was kind of appropriate that one of the first bands I went to see as a teenager at the age of 14 was Hawkwind, which changed my life. Like Hawkwind was like in at the deep end at that point. It was so loud and it was so visually stunning and aggro, the whole thing. And this was pre-punk, so we didn't have anything to measure it against. It was just such a brutal sonic visual experience. And that was almost like an epiphany. Yeah.
When did you first pick up an instrument?
I also kind of messed about with instruments, like there'd be other older brothers' guitars, and everyone seemed to be in a marching band back then, like the Church Lads Brigade. So my brother had snare drums, and then he graduated to bass drum, and then he eventually had the mace, the guy at the front with it was all that kind of military undertow to that kind of thing, bugles and that. It's a sonic thing. I remember hearing in the neighborhood when you could hear these bands in the distance around the Whit Walks, kind of moving around in the environment. And then at New Year, you would hear the Salford docks, all the boats would let off the foghorns and things. And this idea that sound could travel distance was kind of really interesting. David Cassidy played at Main Road, which was Manchester City's ground. And we lived maybe 2 miles away from there. But you could hear this sound drifting on the wind of, like sound in the open really made an impression as a child, Yeah. Sorry, I was off in a reverie then.
No, well, I know where you're coming from because, the docks, Liverpool on the Mersey, it's the same. You hear this industrial sound that.
Yeah, it's a kind of music, isn't it? It's a kind.
It is. And then, when the 5 o'clock whistle, and they all
factories,
get off and the factories, it's always stuck with me. And
there was a bit of a nuclear war siren testing as well, Cold War siren testing and sonic booms. When I was growing up, it's like they hadn't banned the sonic boom back then, and God knows how far away they were, because they were like probably RAF Lightning planes. And they were probably in the Lake District, but you heard these booms and all the kids were like, wow, a sonic boom. It's like, it was noise consciousness was, these were special,
Are you one for always trying to find like how they make that noise? Like you have kids that are into science and they want to know like how things are made and stuff. I mean, I'm the same. When I hear a sound, especially like on a synth, I want to know what synth it came from, what kind of, because it does, it just opens my earbuds into wanting to know more.
I've got more like that as I've got older. But, when synthesizers were emerging in I've probably first heard them in the 70s. I didn't know one from another, I was always like on a Bowie album, you might get Diamond Dogs, for instance, it's got David Bowie plays Moog and Mellotron. I didn't know what either of those were. And then I got the Stevie Wonder albums when they Innovisions when that came out, and it's like Moog and ARP, and I've no idea what those sounds, which one was making what sound. I could tell like that now. I could go like, oh yes, it's the the certain filters that give them flavor. But back then it was all. I just imagined that synthesizers could make any noise that you wanted. Which is obviously they're quite limited, actually. The more synthesizers you get, the more you realize that it's very subtle, the differences, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a kid, you think, like you said, one synthesizer should be able to play everything, but
yeah,
in reality, they don't. And that's why you have so many synthesizers, because you get different sounds from each one. And, are you one that's always looking for that perfect sound?
I've got less like that as I've got older. It's all about a blend of things now. I always see it a bit like a paint box. If you end up with too much analog, you need something wavetabley or digital to contrast. So you put in. It's like if you're drawing with pens and highlighter pens and things like that. You can get, too much analog can be muddy and brown if you're not careful. But in the right context, in the right setting, all these sounds count. But you learn that through just doing loads of messing about with it. How to make things stand out and not to make that brown plasticine of noise when you just don't know what you're doing too much, And I've done all that, like I listened back to some old records and with embarrassment,
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
The whole thing, and I think we live and learn. I mean, I think that's why a lot of kind of electronic producers, their first couple of years, they look back on them and just cringe, and then later on in life go back to them and kind of reinvent that song, that they first put out. And
yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you also get an appreciation of the sound world of old. Like the other night, we went to Monday night. There's a local club around here, and they did a Charles Mingus tribute thing where they played one of his albums with an expanded brass band. So that it had all the saxophones, 4 trombones, 4 trumpets, tuba, contra, alto, clarinets, all this kind of, and no microphones. And it was such a joy not to listen to something through a PA system. Just to be in the bath of brass with the dynamics that you get with that. There's no flattening out of the dynamics. And it's, once upon a time, I wouldn't have registered that. But, in my sonic old age, it's like things like that was like, oh God, it must have been fabulous in the 1940s to be dancing to Count Basie in New York or something, because it's loud as well. I mean, we got so used to amplification, but sometimes it really flattens out the sound.
Well, like New Orleans, is a big jazz city. And they have a little cafe du Monde. They have beignets and coffee, coffee there.
Donuts to you, me.
Yeah, donuts basically. But they have a couple of brass players that play right next to it, and there's nothing better than to hear that outside in the open, and the true value of what a brass band sounds like.
Yeah. It's special stuff, and then synthesizers can get near that, with good sound systems and stuff, but I'm always happy to have a holiday from synthesizers. I'm so used to them, you know what I mean? I just love the sound of. I play a lot of instruments, but for instance, one of my favourites is the bass clarinet, which is a really dark, woody thing, and it's sort of like some instruments when you're playing them resonate. You become vibrated by them, as you're playing them, and that's a thrill. I've always loved guitar as well for that reason. I mean, there's some kind of connection with the vibrational string thing and air from a loudspeaker interacting. The feedback thing. I love all that. There's nothing ever to replace the thrill of a loud guitar feedback system. It's like it was a thrill when I was, a teenager, and it's not gone away at all. I just absolutely love guitar. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a teenager, you see the guitar like as a rock star.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me growing up, me dad's into Black Sabbath, Deep Purple. My mum was more soulful, like Elvis, Beatles, and like Detroit soul music. So I had the best of both worlds in that. And then I had my older sister that was more into, like ska and pop music. But yeah, you like my dad had a couple of guitars, and I destroyed his Gibson because I didn't like the color of it, so I painted it in the garage, and he was not too pleased. Yeah, that's
Whoa.
Yeah, that's my big thing with guitars, and I wasn't allowed to touch a guitar for years. I looking back, I don't blame him, being that pissed off with me. But yeah, there's something about guitars as well, just like again the sonic like sound that comes from it, just the reverb, the reverb from it is just I love it. And that the whole kind of going back to like Spinal Tap, let's go one better than 10, let's go 11. Just always cracks me up because the louder the guitar, you think the better it is. But then you listen to some flamenco players, and you don't need to be loud. So again, I'm kind of the same as you. You learn as you get older to really appreciate some things not being so loud.
Yeah.
And
having said that, it's like I'm quite proud of like there was a thing on just to contradict that. There's a thing on Twitter a few years ago about loudest band experiences, and it was all like Slayer or something, and My Bloody Valentine and 808 State came third in this kind of survey, and it was said like, yeah, that's about right because we're bloody loud when we play, and it's a tradition and it's a thrill. It's something that I'm not going to turn down anytime soon. We won't do unplugged. I do other musical scenarios though with my music friends. That aren't rave. Where we can get much more subtle kind of thing. But 808 is quite brutal. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's still great that you're still going because the likes of yourself, Left Field, Underworld, even Chemical Brothers are still doing that live aesthetic, which is really good, especially for electronic music, because at the moment, like the DJ is looked at like a rock star. They have. There's more people behind the DJ than there is in front of him these days, which that blows my mind. But keeping the live element, it just makes me feel so good because after all these years, I get like coming up this month, I get to see Underworld for like the 10th time, and every single time they just blow me away because it's the connection between the lads and how they feed off each other. I mean, and for you putting out your first album in '88, I believe.
Yeah.
It's just madness. I mean, you look back, you've got to go, I'm still around, I'm still putting, remixing, I'm still going out on the road. It's got to make you feel damn good, that people still want to hear your music.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's odd having the builders in the house at the moment, because they're looking at all the equipment and going like, well, what is it that you do? And then trying to explain what you do as a job. It's really hard to make that connection to say what this culture is, isn't it? Because it just keeps falling into these tropes of what people think club music is, or what. And but when we started off, we never. It wasn't. It was a bit like the idiot energy of punk to us. Of just going like, you can do this. There's a DIY ethic that we grew up with. We grew up with the DIY ethic, which came from the mid-70s, and the sort of, you don't have to play your instrument. You don't have to be top notch. In the world of prog that we grew up with, it was all about excellent musicianship, things like that we couldn't perhaps reach. So when punk came, we carried some of the ideas of progressive music through. And going back to things like Hawkwind, you know what I mean? They're very primal. So it is an odd selection of influences that went into when we first started doing acid house. It wasn't just aping the American acid house. Not to say, if that was there, obviously it was there. But pretty soon all this other stuff leaks into it. And it becomes the product of a lifetime of listening. So the initial record was pretty acid house, but it was very dense as well. And I know me and Gerald were listening to things like Herbie Hancock records and M1 Dishy and Weather Report and things like this, that were quite about texture and sort of atmosphere. And that got dumped into the mix. It wasn't just the straight acid, so it was like funny time signatures and cross rhythms, and it felt like familiar territory to somebody that had grown up around the record collections we'd grown up with. So it instantly got distorted and went off in another direction. And then and then making albums, we thought all that information of like, oh, well, you have a side A and a side B, and then you might have a little throwaway track because you've got 1 minute left on your multi-track tape, and it's like, you're not going to waste it. Or you've got 20 minutes aside and you've only done 17, so you'll do some weirdo track just to fill it out. And that kind of album mentality is definitely an environment we grew up in, and instantly spilled out in things like the album 90 and this one that we're putting back together to tour at the moment, XL. It was some crazy dense business going on XL, because we were given a 32 track recorder at this point. 32 tracks to play with. We've grown up with 8 track or 4 track and Porter Studios. So to get 32 tracks, you wouldn't waste a track. You wouldn't leave one empty. So it becomes this very a tapestry of colour that's a bit denser and probably not as club friendly. Definitely not as club friendly, but very much a headphone album.
Well, I mean, to me, like, back in the day, I think 87 when I first heard, like Chicago and Detroit house music. And, there was some UK acts that were they just tried to do exactly the same thing. It was just boring for me. And you wanted something that was like UK owned. And, I first heard you use that again, like 88, 89. And I was just inspired by it because it was totally different, but still on this kind of same length, the rave scene. But, rave was more like the jungle breaks was coming in. And I just needed something else that would, pierce my ear. And you lot did it. And obviously Gerald went on to be a guy called Gerald. You guys just hit the nail on the head. There's tracks on there that you're just like, what the fuck is that? Because it was out there and it was tweaky and it was just like, But in the headphones, because that's what I always listen to. Put on the headphones, and I always when I listen to an album, I listen to it all the way through. I don't take a break. I listen to it, and usually for me, if there are a lot of albums they put fillers in there. Like you said, to fill the quota of the minutes or how many tracks they need. But you go back and then you listen to them again and you keep hearing new sounds. And I'm big on like listening to, different sounds. And it was just, especially XL was just something that blew my mind, especially an electronic act that's had vocalists on there, obviously Bjork, Bernard Sumner. So really, like, it was just like, wow,
and it was interesting that they were interested in it, because it's not like we had to chase them down to do this. Bernard was already had his wellies on in the electronic world of, diving in. He was a technologist, he was really interested in that stuff. My friend bought a kit off him, like a sequencer thing that Bernard had made from like a Maplin's kit sequencer, and Bernard used to get his soldering iron out. He was that in the dawn of that stuff, It's almost like just one step on from all that practical electronics world, And so, he was quite a natural choice, and he'd always sort of been interested in what we're doing. He used to come in the record shop. So, and Bjork actually chased us down. She'd been listening to New Build and Quadrastate on the Sugar Cubes tour bus, and when she was thinking of going in a more electronic direction, and she was going out to raves and things, so it made perfect sense that she'd be interested in having that as a background. And a complete music nerd like myself, so the minute we met up, we just, the music nerd in both of us seemed like we talked the same language, same references, and it seemed really natural. So, that I remember her doing that recording session took very little time. Everything was really quick with Bjork, very natural, and it felt like a good pairing. Yeah.
Well, for you as well, you obviously worked on her album Post, but I read that you and her actually did Army of Me before she came out with the debut album.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
hold off that long.
Yeah. It was shelved for the whole thing, but didn't seem so long at the time, look at in the time frame now, And she always said, like, don't worry, I'll come out, And
Yeah.
modern things as well was the other one on post. And we did a B-side that called my brain's gone blank on that. No, I'll have to look it up. That's terrible. We did a B-side anyway, but I remember doing that in an afternoon. I'd set up in the studio in London and got all the track ready, and she'd been with the Wu-Tang Clan doing some kind of collaboration in the morning, so she arrived quite late. In like a day in the studio was very expensive business, but it wasn't my money, so I was tinkering away. And she came in late in the afternoon and just threw this thing down, kind of really spontaneous. But she was wearing all this kind of plastic clothing kind of thing. It was all making a noise in the microphone kind of thing. So she just threw all that off. It was like singing into the microphone kind of thing. It's very spontaneous and very, it's sort of like so musical, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's nobody that sounds like her.
Yeah.
Just nobody,
Yeah, something so deliciously pure about it, primal. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Sugar Cubes for a long time. Me and my missus kind of got that thing with Bjork. We just anything she does, it's because again she's not afraid to experiment. And in this day and age, Graham, obviously record companies hold this like thing over musicians' heads, the money issue. Like,
yeah,
if you make a hit record, you've got to follow up with a hit record. And what I love about Bjork is, again, she doesn't give a shit. It's
yeah,
I'm going to make the record that I want to make. And I wish more people kind of had that opportunity, and make these records from the heart, from their soul, rather than like get
yeah.
stopped in there.
She had a great team in that, like her management, and her management is the record company, what used to be called One Little Indian, and her, and they're both a bunch of punks. They used to tour with Crass and things, didn't they? Flux of Pink Indians and things like that. And Bjork used to, be on that anarchic scene of, so it's coming from a strong soil. Both the record company, the management, the artist, they know who they are. And therefore comfortable in their choices. There's no salary guys around, who would have to make it work, otherwise their job's on the line. And it's a fertile environment, for the creatives, and it pays off in it doesn't pay off, I mean, we were with ZTT, quite a creative record company, got a lot of freedom. When they came to us, we already had a radio show, the record shop input, which was invaluable, to be in the middle of retail, knowing what these trends were. DJs out and about in the field, studio guy, we were like a village when ZTT got us, so yeah, we knew our value. And again, it gives it an identity, I think there's times when we maybe got lost in the system a little bit, of trying to. All our hits though are pretty bonkers, aren't they? Yeah, you wouldn't. They're not a blueprint for a hit. Any of those records, But we might have chased the idea here and there, and that's when you get a little bit lost, So I remember certain collaborations that were perhaps unwise and stuff.
Well, I mean, talking of hits, Perfect State got you on Top of the Pops. I know it sounds silly, but that's kind of got to be a little bit of a pinch me moment, from growing up watching Top of the Pops to actually being on it. And, having because I've had quite a few people on here that have been on Top of the Pops as well. And, they tell me it was just like in a big studio, and you had like 3 different stages, and the whole crowd would go from one stage to the next. It wasn't just like, 3 different areas with 3 different crowds. How was it for you going to Top of the Pops?
Yeah. It's a bit like seeing behind the curtain a bit, It's not as the crowd thing is really odd, especially when they're sort of told to clap along. And miming is really odd, It's like I mimed with the sort of electric saxophone because at least it didn't make a noise, and like and you hit the drums and that. Now, there's 2 cymbals welded together so it doesn't ring at all and things like that. Lots of it's theatre, But the thing with Top of the Pops is it's massive validation to your family for one thing, the people you grew up with. It's a validation on a national level that was important. It was important to say this music is just as good as any other music. It's not a secondary music. It's and not to treat the public like idiots, because if you give them the choice, if you make something beautiful and give them the choice, everyone's world expands, doesn't it? It's I was always trying to make something beautiful at the end of the day, be it an ugly kind of beauty or something, it's an aesthetic drive. It wasn't a success drive, and you would be on there with quite some odd things. It was an interesting time for music back then, because again, the DIY thing drove it. It was actually people doing what the hell they wanted, and that became more important than anything manufactured. We live in a world now of AI and stuff where you can literally sort of drum this stuff up, without the human imagination kind of thing. And that's just not what we were doing. It was all about stretching imagination and the use of idiots with technology is an important factor. It's like people always go, it's like, oh, you're boffins. It's like, God, we were far from boffins. We just got our hands on the equipment and then forced it to do what it did. There was no expertise. It was just choices. It's all about aesthetic choices of like, leave it there. Oh, it's doing something good. Freeze it. Cut it up. It's very collage-like. It's very, you found a good bit, you froze it, and then, going back to recreating Excel at the moment, it was just literally loads of loops going, 32 loops of things going past, and then you carved out the music's in there, and you're carving it out into stuff where it's not boring. that was the main thing. It's sort of like, right, bored with that, right? No, boring. No, that's it's like constantly sort of a flow of textures and things that like a landscape.
I remember you coming to the US early on and doing a tour, and my mate.
Have you lived there all that while?
I've lived over here nearly 30 years.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I saw, I've had, the great thing is I've had the best of both worlds. You know, the early rave scene, acid house scene in England, and then the scene over here. You know, people like yourselves, Left Field, Underworld, you know, came on tour, Meat Beat Manifesto, you know, came on tour to little cities and just blew everyone away. My mate Brian, who's also a massive fan, you know, was explaining to me the first time he saw you guys, you know, with the MC, and he was just like, I didn't know what they were doing, but I just knew I loved it. And I'm like, that pretty much sums it up, you know. When you hear something that you really like, even if you don't understand what's going on behind, you know, with the synths and everything and the analog. And he was just like, yeah, I couldn't explain what they were doing, but I knew I liked it.
Well, me too. on that tour that you're talking about, the MC guy was MC Fonzo. He has this thing called M Vita, Manchester Vibes in the area. And I didn't even know he was coming on the tour. Martin Price left the night before the tour, and he might have got. You couldn't change a ticket that quickly. Well, maybe you could in them days. I was thinking maybe he got Martin's ticket, but you would have to change it, wouldn't you? Anyway, I was quite surprised that he was on the tour. And then there was various friends. There was a guy called Hugh and Clark. He was the DJ at the Hacienda. And he came along as kind of like, you know, road crew. Well, he was a DJ, and you think he'd DJ, but he didn't DJ. He just came along as road crew. And then his girlfriend joined us. And like this bus was just like, you know, it's like random people joined the bus and left the bus. And I wasn't in any sort of managerial control. We had a tour manager. He left after about 4 days. There was some incident where he just got off the bus. And then Andrew's wife started tour managing, and she was kind of doing it anyway. She was very organized, and you know, she was the kind of the hub of a lot of us. You know, she ran our office, and so yeah, it was some of the times you're just thinking that, you know, it was quite random, you know. But I remember like MC Fonzo, he was an incredible kind of performer, in that he'd do like sort of backflips into the audience, you know, like a sort of mosh pit kind of thing, holding a glass of brandy, and to get taken to the back of the room and then backflip back onto the stage without spilling a drop and things like, it was just complete craziness. The second tour was quite, yeah, well, it's a talent. Yeah, that rave thing, it was all like blurring the boundaries of performance. You know, it wasn't, we didn't really care a lot about performance because we're just shambling acid house people. We were all often set up at the mixing desk during our early years, you know, just tweaking away. When Gerald was in the band, you know, we would just do the tweaking, you know. And once we'd been on Top of the Pops and all that, you know, we kind of had to start performing to bigger crowds, like the G-Mex concert in Manchester. You know, it's about 12,000 people. So you kind of got to start getting your lasers together and all the visuals and stuff. But we still didn't know how to perform it, you know. It was quite shambling. And certainly that first American tour started to mould us into something, because American audience is a little bit more demanding. You know, we kind of, and being out every night doing it, you started to do veer more into the center of traditional performing, you know, which, and you know, some bands didn't, we did, yeah. So and still do to a certain extent, you know. Throw in a lot of more, you know, we're not as purist as some bands, like Orbital are quite pure, aren't they? You know, kind of. Yeah. Where did you? So you saw us in those early years?
I did. Yeah.
Where was that?
Austin, Texas.
Oh wow! Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it,
Austin always felt like some island in America that wasn't the same as anywhere else.
well, I mean, with Austin, it's the pretty much the only like liberal city in Texas.
Yeah.
It's the only one that doesn't vote Republican. It's a very
Yeah.
music-based city. I mean, Willie Nelson, has his studio here and everything lives
Yeah.
here. But they call it the music capital of the world. I have to have a little cough about that every time they say,
Yeah.
because every place, Nashville will say they're the music capital of the world. Liverpool, Manchester, London, all they'll all say it.
Yeah.
It's just rich with, blues, jazz, rock. It's just a melting pot of all these things, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I moved here. Is I
Yeah.
just like the vibe, and it was great when I first saw you because you had a lot of like kind of goth indie kids as well that were interested in electronic music at the time. A lot of people that were into Depeche Mode, New Order
Yeah. Yeah.
were starting to kind of listen to acid house and rave music, and I think that's where these different subcultures started to come together. So different than from England, than the US. It was just subcultures coming together to.
Yeah. It was interesting. We were on Tommy Boy Records,
Mhm.
which was kind of a hip hoppy label, really known for its hip hop. And yeah, they didn't really know how to market us at first, so we were always kind of lumped in record shops with like the industrial scene, like from 242 and Depeche Mode, like you were saying. So there was this college radio crossover thing that kind of worked for us in a way. But we also, we used to go and do radio tours in America and just do college radio, just interviews and then DJ slots. We did a lot of work to sort of ground it. But there was the odd place in America. Like I always found like Dallas quite rave orientated. They got it. They had big raves already. And the West Coast had a radio station called Mars FM that was a pure techno station. And that helped us tremendously to do quite big raves over on the West Coast. New York was a different kind of vibe, because we were mostly in the clubs in New York, as club music, not as performance. We had a lot of, and Tommy Boy, took us round New York, come and meet the Italians, come and meet the Hispanics, come and meet the gay scene, and they were always compartmentalized when we first started. These, which was odd for us because that whole rave scene in the UK was all about these barriers coming down between all this stuff. So it felt like starting again almost. It felt like one step backwards a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, I try and explain, sometimes to people over here about the rave scene back home. It was just a movement, basically it ended up being like a fuck you to the government. Like,
Yeah.
The whole Criminal Justice Act is an absolute joke. I mean, they tried to do it over here. They called it the crack house law. I used to go to New Orleans State Palace Theatre to a bunch of raves there, and they, were shutting it down and they called it the crack house law. They just couldn't put up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just I mean, with something like that, you know, it's a movement that's created so many different like subgenres now in electronic music, you know, but has also created these money monster machines, you know, as you know, EDM, America.
Yeah.
I just don't like that word. I just don't. I mean, I talked to Howie B about it, and he was having a good laugh with me. Another one that's, you know, worked with Bjork as well. Howie's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, back in those times, we used to do quite a bit of hanging out in how we had a really good Sunday night in London that we used to go to, and you know, he'd always be in some studio somewhere, so we'd go and hang out. You know, it was a nice little scene around Bjork. You know, she was very social connector, met many very interesting people through her and being around her. You know, yeah, how is such a all that Mowax stuff he was doing, Pussyfoot and all that. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sounds he was creating and still creating is
Yeah.
great to hear. Now, I would smack myself if I didn't ask you this. Okay, Future Sound of London, you know, Papa New Guinea is a classic, and you got to remix it. Obviously, you know, Andy Weatherall did a remix as well. It's just like out of this world. But for you, when you get given that, what's your thought process of like taking something that's, you know, amazing? It's an absolute amazing track by itself, and putting your spin on things. Because yours is, you know, so different that, like, you know, you're keeping the elements of the original, but you're making it's basically Future Sound of London versus 808 State. If they could have a baby, that's what it would sound like. I mean, to me. But what?
Yeah, well, when you got you got it all as floppy disks back then. I've still got the floppy disks for it, and I remember you don't get much time to think about it back then because you booked a day in the studio, in which case it was Fond Studio in Sheffield. You have a day to prep it, maybe go half a day into the following day because of the budget. So you have to think on your feet really fast, you know, and you have to think what amount of the flavour you're keeping from it. And I guess, you know, I put wind instruments on it. I put alto clarinet and sax on it. So I did a melodic thing. My approach was to go melodic on it, you know, try and put a strong melody into that environment, you know, and not disturb the environment too much, you know. Change the back, like put some more sort of Afro-Cuban-y kind of rhythm take on it. So change the rhythmic aspects of it. But, you know, back then, I was doing remixes and quite often got paired up with Andy Weatherall, which was really frustrating because he was so damn good, you know. It was always kind of like, that he always had this ability to make it sit on the dance floor. Whereas again, I'd be quite dense, you know, that wasn't as DJ friendly, but arguably is a little bit more listening. But actually, this might be a time world exclusive. Me and Brian have just done a record, which is 808 State versus Humanoid, a 4-track EP. It's going to come out. It's going to come out next year. We've just got the what do you call it? Just had it mastered. So yeah, literally like a day ago. So
I just got goosebumps.
Right.
I just got goosebumps.
Right. Well, I hope it lives up to the idea.
I'll let you know.
I'm pleased. Yeah, I'm pleased with it. You know, it's kind of it's probably not what you imagine it to be, you know, but it's definitely its own world. And we might do another one because you know, we went off at various tangents and, you know, but I definitely wanted to do something that I could play in my DJ sets. Mm-hmm. So we did expand, but we wanted to make some banging stuff, you know. So yeah, that's coming out on a label called Detuned from Belgium. Yes,
I look forward to that, because that's, I mean, Brian's amazing, you know. I mean, I'm a massive Future Sound of London fan as well. It's just,
yeah, and he's so industrious as well. He's kind of like, you know, he just cracks on and doesn't let all the other stuff get in the way. And yeah, it's been a really nice collaboration that we should have done years ago, you know. But the guy from the record,
you know, there's a time, then obviously, you know, if you believe in fate and everything, things work out when they're supposed to, you know. So
yeah,
I look so much forward to hearing that. That's that's brilliant news. Obviously you've got the tour,
which starts in a couple of weeks. Starts in Ireland.
You've been working hard on nailing it all down. What's your full live setup?
There's me. My son Jackson is now doing. You know, when Andrew died, Jackson was already filling in. So he's been in it over 5 years now. You know, he's so me and him are on the tweaky table, and I play keyboards, sax, guitar, and you know, I play other stuff. You know, we have a singer with us. When's this podcast going out?
Probably a couple of weeks.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we have a singer, Ellen Beth Abdi, who sings in ACR actually. And she was actually in the same class at high school as Jackson. So we have the class of whenever it was, you know. And she's a brilliant. She's got a lot of range as a singer. She sings in many. She has a solo album out, which so she's her own total musician. You know, plays flute as well. You know, she's an all-round musician. And we have Carl Sharrocks on drums, he's been in the band for nearly 20 years. So, and then we have, you know, it doesn't stop there, because we have like the crew that we've had since back in the 90s, which are a part of the 808 family, you know, the same people we've had for years. So we're a bit of a, you know, a tight little gang. Yeah.
How many dates you doing?
I think it's 8. Mm-hmm. We just do Fridays and Saturdays. Yeah. So it starts on where's me info? Starts in Ireland on the Dublin 21st, Cork 22nd, then Birmingham 28th, Norwich 29th, Glasgow the 5th of December, Sheffield the 6th. December, Brixton, London on the 12th, and finishing in Manchester on the 13th of December. And then a little lie down.
and then see what 2026 brings.
Yeah.
Also a quick thing, you know, Bicep, obviously.
Oh yeah.
In your face. Those lads, to me, also, you know, pushing boundaries. You know, they're doing absolutely brilliant, and all the success, you know, has not gone unnoticed. I mean, taking a track like "In Your Face," and it's more subtle, and Bicep kind of beefed it up quite a bit. Did they come to you to do the remix?
Yeah, they were. In fact, their manager used to work for this record company. It did a project of mine called Sisters of Transistors, which was a combo organ quartet. and they put that record out, which is a solo kind of, well, it's not a solo project. It was a concept project that I did. And so, yeah, their manager used to work for that label, and therefore we were in contact, and they were saying, "Oh, can we have a go?" So they just asked us and worked out, just putting out some vinyl. It was quite a narrow little deal, So yeah, seemed sensible. And we played a gig with them at Festival Number 6 in Wales. We shared the stage with them, so we sort of like there was a connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a brilliant remix, and it's like,
yeah, it did so well as well. It did, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
I
it
love
just kind of caught a mood or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I love their label. Feel my bicep. It's just right up my alley. It's tweaky. It's acidy. It's
Yeah.
all the things I kind of like. It's
and like another one that happened last year with Kneecap. Last minute. They got in touch trying to clear the Cubic thing. Because if sometimes you go through the publishers, it just gets in a mire. They probably went to the publishers and said, "Oh, it's this Irish language band that want to." And they probably just sort of went, But again, through people we knew in the past, Jeff Barrett from Heavenly Records or whatever, we go way back when we used to do loads of stuff in London. And, it's always those human connections that still work. The internet doesn't solve everything, sometimes human connections can carry on over decades, So that was a lovely one. That's nice, and that's given that a kick up the bum as well. In fact, people probably think we've sampled them, but in the confusion of everything,
Yeah, that's the thing with the younger generation, like like DJing and stuff. I went to see Sasha and Digweed in Dallas actually not too long ago, and they actually played some classics. And the kids were just like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And I was like, "This is like 25 years old." They're like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, mate, go check it out." And I gave them, what it is and everything. And it's just great, the new generation of ravers and dancers, whatever you want to call them, are searching out, and that's what I always say at the end of my podcast is, don't just look for new music. Look for 20, 25, 30-year-old electronic music, because you will find so many good music out there. It's not the freshest stuff is always the best.
Correct. Yeah, it's music's always been like that, don't it? Music should be timeless. If it's working, it's timeless instantly.
Yeah, that's what I love about DJ sets. You can play the newest stuff and you can throw classics in there, just to kind of one up the crowd. And I know, like, the whole thing back in the day, DJs were covering up their records because they didn't have pain spotters.
You could sell them Tipex, couldn't you?
Yeah. Nowadays you have like Shazam and all that stuff, but
yeah.
It's always nice when somebody takes the time to come up and ask you, what that track is that you're playing. So, it's lovely. The only thing I don't get is the mobile phone thing. I just don't get it. But that's a whole nother podcast to talk about, like mobile phones in clubs and stuff. I mean, for me,
well, we played a club last month in Manchester, where they didn't announce who's on. They've had some good names on. Mm-hmm. They don't announce who's on. It's a fiver in, and they put a sticker on your phone, and it's full of 20-year-olds. And it was one of the best nights I've had for years. And, it's sort of, you've just got to live on your wits, and there's no baggage that comes with it. And you're just in the moment, and it's like, make it work or sink, and that was brilliant. There's a club called Ambers in Manchester.
Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, you know, especially with it being cheap.
And
So
yeah, the cheap thing, yeah, because like, yeah, if you're a 20-year-old, you're not going to spend 100 quid on a night out. You know, you shouldn't be spending 100 quid on a night out.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's why a lot of them go to these festivals, though. You know, where they do spend 200 quid, but they get to see
A lot of stuff, yeah,
30
yeah,
DJs, and that's just too
yeah,
much for me. That's just me being an old fart, just going, you know, because if I'm paying that much money, I need to see all these DJs. You know, I'd rather
yeah,
pay, you know, 20, 30 quid and see a person like Dave Clark play 4 hours.
yeah.
You know, that's the kind of thing I'm into.
And it's just should just be part of the punctuation of life, isn't it? It's like it's Friday night punctuation. Lose it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Lose yourself in the music.
Yeah,
That's what it's
therapy.
all about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Nate, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
If you're over in Ireland or the UK, please go check out Graham and 808 State. You can go to their website, 808stateofficial.com. You'll find everything there, and also their discography if you want to, you know, go down memory lane, or if you don't even know about 808 State and you want to go check them out there. As I always say, please go check out new music, but go check out older music. You will be surprised at the quality and the production of some of these albums and tracks from back in the day. And as you know, we live in this crazy world at the moment. You know, please look after yourselves. Please be nice to one another. You know, you turn the telly on and there's so much shit going on in this world that is uncalled for. And, you know, for me, music brings people together. Music can heal. You know, I've been told off quite a few times, how the fuck does music heal? But it heals in here and up here as well. So until next time, Graham, again, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and we'll see you next time.